Hello, geeks. What's going on? I think it's only fair that I do a hopefully quick video on Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scar Giver, since I did like a 54-minute video on Part 1 uh, back in December, I guess, whenever it came out, defending the movie. And since I've watched part two, which came out, I guess now a couple of weeks ago, two has it been 2 weeks? Maybe three. Actually, it's probably been 3 weeks. I don't know, but I think it debuted on a Friday. I watched it that night, and long story short, I didn't like it that much. There were parts of it I liked. I didn't think it was as good as the first film. And I'm not saying the first film was a masterpiece either, but if you want to know my deeper thoughts on part one, go back to that video. Rebel Moon Rant, I think is what it's titled. Yeah, so I thought it was only fair. I mean, since I spent so much time defending really the first film, to talk about the second film, and you know, I'm ready to eat crow whenever it's appropriate. So overall, yeah, I thought it was a bad film. I didn't think it was. It was a missed opportunity. It should have been a lot better than it was. But again, I think a lot of that had to do with the just whack job editing that these films go through. I don't know if Snyder's deal with Netflix, it seriously must be like Netflix has a guy who goes into the editing room and edits the film, and Snyder doesn't have any input on it. I think that's what's happening. Like, there's a Netflix guy who goes in and says, "Nah, we're gonna take the master cut and we're gonna edit it." And so the R-rated versions of Part One and Part Two have not been released yet. They're supposed to be released, I think, in June. To me, those are probably going to be, not probably, they will be the definitive versions of those two films. And as usual, they will probably be vastly different movies than the so-called theatrical or PG-13 cut. And this is where Snyder, in my opinion, tends to do much better, is when he is able to present his total film vision as he intended it, as he edited it. This whole concept of like, oh, I'm going to make this product and I'm going to let the suits, you know, reconfigure it for the mass audience while my original vision will sit on the back burner until such time as they deem it necessary to release it to squeeze a few more dollars out of the consumer. That's stupid. I hate that. As an artist, I hate that. But I'm not in the movie industry, so I don't know. I don't have intimate details of what kind of pressures and machinations and hoops you have to jump through to try to get your vision out there. And clearly, he has to do that, as evidenced with the Justice League Snyder cut, which was vastly superior to the Joss Whedon atrocity that Warner Brothers suits made them crank out. So we'll see. We'll see if there's some redemption for part two in the R-rated cut. But in this PG-13 rated cut, it's just kind of a mess. Like, my biggest takeaway from the movie, like, I learned a lot about how to harvest wheat in slow motion. I learned a lot about that. Oh, by the way, I should have said this up front. There will be spoilers, so if you don't want to hear spoilers, then go watch Rebel Moon 2 and then come back. Yeah, I let's go with some of the design stuff first. So I think the design, the set design, the costume design, there wasn't as much creature design in this one. Not as many aliens encountered. This is essentially, I guess, it's a war movie. I think even Snyder said that that's what it was. It's a war movie. So this is the big showdown between the Imperium and the kind of magnificent seven that are defending the farming community on the rebel moon, and the way that they design the sets, the technology, and so forth, I think is kind of interesting. So clearly, what they're doing is, I mean, for the Imperium, they're pulling from a couple of different sources to my eye. One of them is like basically just grim dark in general. It's got a very Warhammer 40K ish look. But also there is a sort of a World War II hardware look that they've implemented. The way that the dreadnought ship operates. Clearly, the guys that run it they're essentially white Nazis, which is a little overdone at this point, but whatever. But they're very militaristic, And the main villain, I forget his name, but who was really good, I thought, in the first movie. It kind of takes a back seat in this one. He just isn't as menacing in this one as he was in the first film, and he goes a little bit off the rails near the end, and he's like orders them to fire on the he's like, let's scuttle the whole mission and just blow up the whole damn moon basically, and his second in command is like shocked by this. He's like, well, we got troops down there, and he's like, so what? We've got the Scar Giver. That's who we came for. We don't care about the wheat. But when they were clearly saying, no, we need the wheat for the food so we can get back to the home planet. But the second in command guy's like acting shocked about that. But this dude has been off the rails crazy since the first movie. He's been prone to, erratic and rashly violent behavior. So why is this a shock to you, dude? So stuff like that just kind of, I think it piles up after a while. It begins to annoy the viewer. And I mean, just, I don't know, plot-wise, it just really wasn't much of a plot. It was just like, hey, we're in this village now, and these guys are coming to attack us, so we got to get ready. And, the time frame in which they train these people is, they train them, in 2 days. They're, ready for battle, in a couple of days. And then, there's this scene when the seven of them, or I guess it's seven, or they're sitting around and they're just kind of, going through their backstory. And so, and everybody hates the exposition. But I thought that scene, I agreed with the concept of that scene, but I thought where it was placed in the film was it's almost in the latter half of the movie. It's the night before the big battle. And I'm thinking, we probably could have used this scene in the first movie so that we knew a little bit more about what these people's motivations are and, how they've been affected by the Imperium's, evil totalitarianism and militarism and all that, that should have been kind of in the first movie, So, the battle scenes, and, I don't know, the battle's probably the last 30 minutes of the film. I had mixed feelings about it. I just felt like they were trying, in the battle scenes, they're just trying to cut between, at least 4 different locations in 4 different, actually now I think, 5 different, locations. They're cutting between the various heroes and whatever role they play in the strategic defense of this village, but also the Imperium troops. That takes place on the ship. It takes place on the ground. It was just and of course there's all this slow motion. At any given time, we're breaking out into slow motion, and when people say that Snyder can get self-indulgent, this is the movie I would point to. It's it was just too much, man. You know, it just didn't make for a good, cohesive, and engaging experience. And what should have been probably a much better film, it brought it down. So you know, but there's people who say, well, what Snyder needs is an editor, and it's like, no, I mean, he has an editor clearly, and it's you know, it's this weird effect of you can tell that scenes are cut short, other scenes they're dropping you in probably 2 minutes after the original scene was shot, you know, and recorded. So it's those things add up, and then it just doesn't make for a great movie, which is unfortunate, you know, because I was rooting for this film. Now, supposedly, the movie is actually doing pretty good on streaming, or it was. It's dropped out of the top 10 now. But I was looking at some websites here, and actually I didn't find a whole lot of news. There's a lot of reviews, and the reviews are like, you know, on Rotten Tomatoes, for what it's worth, critics 15%, which, you know, I don't know if it rates a 15%, but probably like, you know, maybe a 30%, and the fan rating I think was like 50%, or the audience rating. And I would put it about there. On a 5-star scale, you know, I would give part 2 probably like a 3-star. Whereas part 1 I gave it, I think, like 3.5 stars. You know, part 1 I did like it enough that I watched it. I think 3 times. Part 2, you know, I watched it. I've only watched it once. I might watch it one more time just to kind of look for Easter eggs. And I did watch. It's interesting because I did watch some of the I guess the making of reels that were also tacked on to it. And there's there is a huge expansive universe that they've created behind these films. The problem is that the films don't really access any of that information. Like they're taking their sweet damn time, like dribbling out. So all these weird visual things that some people have a problem with in the film, all this weird aesthetic, actually, you know, there's all backstory to all that stuff. Like one of them I learned was like, you know, the dreadnought. It sometimes it appears that it's like coal powered, like they're literally shoveling in, you know, coal into this thing but in order to sabotage it and blow it up, you know, the main character Cora, you know, she plants charges on its engine core, which is basically this big metal head of a woman that's got like energy beams coming out of it, which I thought was pretty cool, you know. Well, that's apparently like a reference to some sort of spirit demon that actually is interdimensional, that is the propulsion system for this ship, which is an intriguing concept, and I totally dig that. But they don't tell you that in the film. This is something I had to learn in some of the, you know, back matter stuff that they shot for the film. The, you know, DVD extra scene or extra bonus content, I guess is what you call it, you know. So it's stuff like that that annoys me. Like, you know, I don't want everything explained to me all at once, but man, dude, you got to drop in a few hints as to what the hell I'm looking at and what's going on. And I think that's one of the things that make this movie suffer. Okay, so it came out in the global top 10 list for the week of April 15th, April 21st, despite 3 days. It only debuted for 3 days in that week. That said, it had only 3 million more views in that window than Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp. Its 21 million views is a steep drop from the 34 million views that Part 1 had. That movie went on to get 80 to 90 million views eventually, Part 1. It seems like Part 2 is going to underperform that. This is from a Forbes article, Forbes.com, from April 24th. Yeah, it says the 6 more hours of Rebel Moon are coming. Two 3-hour cuts of these two films with R-rated elements. Snyder describes them as practically entirely new films. so, so they probably are. So really, I'm still banking on those being the better and definitive versions of this. I still stand by the fact that people should try to support this because we need new stuff. I just saw a trailer yesterday for like Despicable Me 4. I mean, how many sequels really? It's just how many sequels are going to come out for everything? And they just a Fall Guy remake just hit the theater. That didn't do well. And they're doing something else now. I forget. I just read about. Oh, there's a Riddick 4 coming out. It's this year. There's only like 2 or 3 original new properties. Everything is a sequel. Everything, like 95% of the films are sequels. And they wonder why they're not going to have such a great year at the box office. So anyway, yeah, part 1 and 2 are coming out R-rated versions. Now, what Snyder said about these movies on Rogan is that they were heavily influenced by his reading of Heavy Metal Magazine in the 80s. And Heavy Metal Magazine in the 80s was firing on all cylinders. And he said a lot of the story elements and a lot of the visuals were influenced by that. He said he wanted to make something that was like heavy metal, but live action on film. So I can kind of see that a little bit in these movies. But there was such a diverse array of heavy metal comics because if you don't know heavy metal, it was a monthly I think it was a monthly magazine. Of different comic stories by various, mostly European comic book artists and writers. So it was a much more adult comic or comics than it wasn't under the comics code of America. So it wasn't your typical Marvel and DC type stuff, which means it was more adult. Which means some of the stories had nudity and sexual situations in them, and violence too. So that's what he was influenced by, and I can kind of see that. I don't know, but it's hard to make that leap after watching both the PG-13 versions. But we'll see. If you look at the R-rated version of Batman versus Superman, there's really no need for it to be R-rated. But I think the only thing that kind of made it R-rated is that they just CGI'd in some blood. Like when Batman's fighting a dude and he punches him or whatever, like you'll see blood. Like in the PG-13 cut, like you didn't see the blood. So that was about the only, So in this film, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But anyway, it according to what I'm reading online, it did better than I expected. I didn't really see the outrage blow up on YouTube for this movie, like the first part, because I think people just completely checked out from after this. So the usual suspects. Well, I don't know. I guess Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker did make videos about it. I think I watched some of the Critical Drinker video. I didn't watch any of the Nerdrotic one, but it's like knee jerk with them. Anything Snyder does is going to have a video made immediately. But that's about it. I didn't see like a massive amount of videos made about it. But from what I'm reading, it apparently did well enough that I guess Netflix is probably going to greenlight the third film, which they totally set up the sequel and they they set it up so that it's clear that their next mission is to go find the Emperor's little girl, who Korra assassinated or was kind of forced to assassinate. But she finds out at the end that the little girl is actually still alive, and she finds out from General Titus. And again, it's like, well, is this not information that Titus could have given her? Because everybody knows what a pivotal event that plays in Korra's life. She's the frickin' assassin. She's the most wanted woman in the universe, because she killed the Emperor's daughter. But the Emperor's daughter has some kind of magical powers or supernatural powers, and so she, everyone kind of figured, I think, watching the film, that she's probably alive, because they talk about her enough that it's like, so. So they set it up towards like, the Emperor's daughter. Oh, you didn't know? She's alive. Oh, and then Korra's like, oh, well, we need to go find her. I need to atone for my, for my sin of killing her. So that sets up the third film. So I guess, based on the numbers I'm seeing, it underperformed, but still, 70 million views or whatever. One article I read has said that it's done very well over in foreign countries. Let's see here. Here's an article from Small Screen. This is a UK website. They refer to, and this is these days you can never tell. There's so much ass kissing in the media now. Just listen how this is written. As per the latest buzz, this Zack Snyder spectacle is not just making waves, it's practically causing a tsunami in the streaming world. That's the first sentence. Released just last week on Netflix, this cinematic behemoth has already raked in impressive viewership numbers, firmly placing itself at the top of Netflix's charts across a multitude of regions. So what's all the fuss about? Well, for starters, Rebel Moon Part 2 isn't just another sequel. It's a continuation of a saga that promises and delivers high-octane action, breathtaking visuals, and a narrative depth that draws you in from the first scene. Jeez, man. You want me to come and wash and wax your car while you're at it? What a slobbering... there's like no pretense of objectivity in this article at all. With a week that saw it dominate Netflix streaming charts globally and competing head-to-head with major theatrical releases. What came out that week? Like the Omen Part 8? What was it competing with? Okay, maybe, okay, I think Godzilla X Kong. Maybe it was competing with that, which I think that did pretty decently in the theater. I still haven't seen that. I got to go see that. Anyways, back to this slobbering pander fest. With a week that saw it dominate Netflix's streaming charts globally and competing head-to-head with major theatrical releases in terms of viewer engagement, there's no denying that Snyder has once again struck gold, or perhaps platinum, with his latest venture. Come on! What the fuck, man? According to Flix Patrol, that's a well-known website, since its debut, Rebel Moon Part 2 has consistently topped the Netflix charts in numerous countries, showcasing its broad appeal. From Argentina to Australia, fans have been glued to their screens, binging the space opera that Snyder has so masterfully created. What the fuck? This film's reach isn't just limited to traditionally strong markets for sci-fi. It's resonating worldwide. Might as well make that resonating universe-wide, marking a significant success in Netflix's international strategy. Viewer engagement is off the charts. Fuck. Come on, man. The figures are nothing short of stellar. IndieWire reports a whopping 44.2 million views watched within just the first few days of release. When you break down the math, that translates to an estimated 21.4 million views, considering the movie's 124-minute runtime. Such numbers aren't just impressive, they're record-breaking, especially when compared to other streaming releases this year. Zack Snyder has the Midas touch. It seems that Zack Snyder knows how to weave magic on the stream. Okay, let me just set the stage here, okay? Let me make myself clear. For all my misgivings about Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, I have deeper misgivings and indeed a hatred for journalism, so-called journalism such as this. This article really actually has nothing to do so much with Snyder. It has more to do with just Netflix and sucking up to Netflix. Whoever this website is, Small Screen. So, okay, small-screen.co.uk. It's some, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. It's the first time I've ever heard of this website, but there's so many of them, I don't really pay attention to all of them. But this type of so-called, journalism, it's just everywhere. It's everywhere. There's nothing objective about this at all. The movie probably, again, it cracked top 10. It stayed there for a week, which I don't think that's really anything to write home about. There's been plenty of movies that stayed in the top 10 for longer than that. We all know streaming math is more arcane bullshit than actual science. So look, I mean, go back and watch my video. This video is almost the exact opposite from my first Rebel Moon video, where I was, vigorously defending the movie and Zack Snyder. Let's read some more of this. The critical and audience reception. While the critics have mixed feelings with indie, that's the understatement. Dude, it's got a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. There's no mixed feelings. They've made it pretty clear that they hate this movie, and they hated the first one. But that was going to happen either way. So, while there's a lot of bad actors. This is one of these situations like throw a rock and you'll hit someone who's guilty of being a prick. While the critics have had mixed feelings with IndieWire's own review giving it a less than favorable score, the audience reaction tells a different story. Only 50% audience reaction. Viewer ratings and social media responses indicate a strong positive tilt. That's just an outright lie. It's just a lie. It's a reminder that sometimes the court of public opinion can vastly differ from the critics, and in the age of streaming, audience numbers often speak louder than reviews. Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, is more than just a film. It's a phenomenon that underscores the shifting dynamics of movie watching in the digital age. Its success is a testament to the power of streaming platforms like Netflix, which allow for innovative storytelling and creative freedom that might be constrained in traditional cinema settings. Okay, I'll give you that statement. I said that in my Rebel Moon Rant video. I do think streaming allows for new things to be tried, and this is an example of it. My problem is I think this example is failing with Part 2, because again, Netflix wants to have their cake and eat it too. They want a wide audience, family friendly, Star Warsy franchise that they can edit the hell out of from its original vision and throw it out there and expect audiences to lap it up. Well, certainly this clown, whoever wrote this article, or this AI that wrote it, lapped it up, But they have an agenda to suck up to Netflix. I have no such agendas. I only have 100 subscribers. Moreover, the monumental streaming numbers suggest that audiences worldwide are ready and eager for epic stories that transport them to new worlds right from the comfort of their homes. If the trend continues, this isn't even journalists. This is advocacy. This is PR for Netflix. If the trend continues, we might see the scales increasingly tip in favor of digital releases, especially for genres that benefit from the immersive experience that home entertainment systems can offer. Well, I agree with that, but Mr. Article Writer, you better check out AI and see what's coming there. because everyone is going to be a streaming service soon. Everybody, maybe even me. So grab your popcorn and your remote and dive into the universe that Snyder has expanded. Whether you're a fan of his previous works or new to his cinematic style, Rebel Moon Part 2 The Scargiver promises to give an adventure that's too good to miss. It's not just a film. It's not a film. What is it? Is it clock radio? It's a microwave oven? It's a light bulb. It's not just a film, it's a sprawling space epic that's reshaping the landscape of what a Netflix blockbuster can be. Okay, so I searched on Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, and I went to the search engine's news tab. And really, this and the other Forbes article is about all I found. There were a lot of reviews that came up, but in terms of news, because I was trying to dig into some of the numbers, as arcane and as manipulated as streaming numbers can be. So, but all I know is it debuted well, but it dropped pretty quickly. Overseas, it probably did okay, yeah. So I think there's enough there that Netflix is probably going to hand him more money for the third movie and to try to flesh it, but try to flesh out this this Rebel Moon universe. But maybe they'll wait and see. I'm sure they're going to wait and see how the July R-rated cuts do before I think they probably make a decision on the third film. Now, personally, having said everything I've said, I would like to see a third film because I think that this streaming platform situation does maybe give them the opportunity to take a little more risks. Like if this were a theatrical only release, this is over. This is done. No studio is going to greenlight that third movie. They might get talked into maybe doing like a TV show or an anime or something like that. But in terms of it being like this mass audience blockbuster, they would have already pretty much lost money, especially on this second one. But I don't know. I don't know what kind of. I didn't see what they spent. I think it was around $100 million on each movie, maybe. I don't know. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. If you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out. I guess it hit the 2-hour mark. So again, there were some parts of it that I liked. I liked I liked that some of the, this is going to come out the wrong way. I liked that some of the characters died. If they had all lived, it would have been oh, please, it would have been too Spielbergian, I guess maybe. But there was a cost to the battle. I liked mostly though I liked it mostly from the eye candy aspect. I like the way Snyder does a lot of visuals. I like the way he works his cameras. I like the way he colors his films. That type of auteur stuff that he does. I think he does it very well. But I just think the editing and the story execution, we're subpar. I think some of the acting was questionable in this one as opposed to the first one. So it's worth maybe checking out, but I stick, only 3 stars, I might watch it one more time just because I've heard there's kind of a lot of sort of world building or universe building Easter eggs in it. So that would be interesting to look at. If they're going to make a third movie, but it didn't get me excited to the point where I want to run out and buy any Rebel Moon related products. I know that there's some art books out or the making of Rebel Moon or that kind of thing. Like I'm not going to run out and get those. I saw a novelization at the bookstore the other day. I know that there's some comics that have been made. I looked at them. I looked at the one that was based on the first film, and I didn't like the artwork in it. It just looked like the usual muddy, thin line drawn tablet crap. So I didn't buy it. I mean, I think it was like $5.99. And it's just like no. So yeah, that's all I got to say about Rebel Moon Part Two. At least I didn't go an hour with this one, but I think the moral of the story is I just this it really underscores just how crappy the film journalism is. Most of it, just you got the people on one side on YouTube that are just gonna, they have their list of people they just automatically hate. They don't look at anything on a case by case basis, and then you got these pandering suck ups, on these websites that just spew out this suck up bootlicker garbage to curry favor with these studios, and it's just there's where is the middle? Am I the middle? I mean, where's the middle? So anyway, it is what it is in this digital technology age. Until the next one, I hope you're doing well, but till the next one, stay geek.